Hey everybody, it's Doug here, Doug Mystic Eye Board Game Geek, bringing you a new playthrough. This one is a game from 3D Total Games called Wizard Academy. I first saw this before it got kickstarted quite a while back on Ricky Royal, Box of Delights game channel. We previewed it, and then Rado previewed it as well, but I've never seen an additional video after that. And this game is actually really cool, though it is fairly complicated and there's a lot to it. It's a cooperative game where we are, of course, wizards trying to do something in a scenario-based gameplay within this Wizards Academy. Defend it from something, save it from this, help it do this, blah, 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 blah. And I've already done all of the setup, and the setup is complicated enough. I was going to run you through it, and I'm going to recommend, if you want to see how it's set up quickly, then pop over to one of those other videos. I'm going to talk about the setup briefly and our characters, but I'm not going to do the setup. I've already done it. Now, what you see in front of you is basically the map of the Academy. All the tiles are laid out randomly and even positioned randomly, so you'll see that some are facing this direction, some are facing that direction, and you'll see some things in them at this point. For example, up here in the corner, you see this guardian figure. This is one of the guardians. Now, I'll tell you why he's there in a moment. You also see over here, you see up in this top room, you see our 3-player characters, which I'll talk to you about, in these 5 white crystals. Those are the mana crystals that are in the mana crystal room, and there's a lot of things that can happen there, but that's basically the lifeblood and the hit points of the Academy. If those go away, we lose the game. One of the ways we lose the game. Again, as I said, this is scenario driven, so a lot of the setup is based on scenarios, the scenario itself. In fact, some of even the room elements where they're at were scenario based. Now you also see these little tokens here. These are glyphs. Now you could stack them all up on one tile, but I just got them in a separate place, so when I go to that room I can pull glyphs. Glyphs power spells, and spells are what we need to do. We need to learn and cast new spells to keep propagating the game, well, keep moving the game forward and eventually hit the objectives of the scenario. In this scenario, our characters are trying to defend the Academy against an onslaught of demons that are trying to get into the Academy. And to do that, we're going to build golems. Now, we already have 2, and they need to be in the 4 corners of the board. And as luck would have it, there's a little bit of a manipulation of the board that goes on during the setup that allowed me to get one of those. One of them appeared in the corner just by luck, but get one of them into another corner up in the top of the Holy Room up here. And again, each of the rooms have different abilities. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. We're going to face threats. We're going to do all kinds of crazy things. As I said, this is a bit of a complicated game, but it's not so complicated you won't get it. But we're going to go over the turn order. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about disasters, because disasters are bad, and there's something that's going to happen to us at the end of every player's turn. I'm going to be playing with 3 players today just to make it interesting. And I'm going to talk about spells, because spells are the crux of the game. Now, I showed you those glyphs, and I showed you the symbols on them. And here we are with the spell tome, the grimoire of the Academy. And here's the Academy itself, really beautifully illustrated. And what you see here is this cascade of spells. These ones here are level 1, then they go to level 2, level 3, level 4, and there's a level of randomization to them, again, based on the scenario that we're playing, which is, by the way, if you look in the book, it's called Golem Construction for Beginners. It's the first non-basic scenario in the book, because there's a basic gameplay. I already played through that just to make sure I understood how to play, and now we're doing this one. Now, there are 2 types of spells. There's really good spells that you can learn to cast. There's also these botches. And one of the things we have to do is use these, and so you can see here's the grid with the symbols, the rune symbols that we have in the Academy that we can go collect. And we use these to cast various spells. We can cash them in as part of one of our actions to cast the spell and see what it is. And it's going to go off, and we don't even know what it is yet. It's going to go off, and we're going to have to deal with it. But if we don't, we're going to place it back face down after we've done it. So there's a bit of a memory bit here too, where you have to go to a certain room, and as a room action, it's the library. You can bind the spell and keep it face up, and that way you got its use. But again, there's good and bad spells. There's these one called botches, and they're not necessarily all bad, but they have a bad side effect, and sometimes it works in your favor, sometimes it doesn't. You'll see how that works. Anyway, what we have to do is uncover, one, we have to get to the outer dimension to get the last glyph. Now, if somewhere in here is the thing that's going to allow us to summon more guardians, I assume, well, I hope, but I knew I put the spell in there. It's in there somewhere, and we're going to have to get to that to be able to do it. So again, we're going to be facing threats. We can't lose characters. We got to be careful. When we lose a character, if a character dies, it takes one of the magic of the academy will save the character at the cost of one of the crystals. So we have a basically life points, and the wizards themselves, if they die immediately. Like if they're in a scenario where they're going to be killed, like if they're in a room with end their turn in a room with fire or something like that. Okay, so that's the spell, the Grimoire, and you're gonna be seeing a lot of that as well. Like I said, I'm not gonna spend a lot of time on setup because I want to get to the gameplay. This is a beefy game. It's gonna be very cool. I have no idea how long it's gonna take to finish this scenario, but let's talk about characters. Here's one of the characters, Navetta. She nobody knows why. It says nobody remembers how or why she turned into a bear, but she's a bear and a wizard. And you can see that on her mat, she's got a couple of things. Her picture, this is where we collect the glyphs that she'll be using. She has a special ability. It says at the start of your turn, you may spend a glyph to ignore all threats that affect but do not prevent movement for the rest of the turn. So if something would slow us down, like water or something, it slows us down, we can spend any glyph to prevent that. And then we got some other things here, and these are things that happen in the game. So the shared box here means that we can put a glyph into the shared box, and the other players can utilize that glyph. It'll burn it if they use it, but it's there to be shared, and that's pretty potent in the game. We also have these items that we can collect. We don't get them automatically. There's a couple ways you can go to the room and collect them by turning in a bunch of glyphs, or there's some spells that allow you to summon them for less cost than using the rooms. We have a wand. And you'll understand what all this means, but it says you may use any glyph as if it were the glyph in this box. So you put a glyph in that. Again, you put a glyph in all these boxes, basically, or a threat token in this one. But it allows you to match the glyph. And then the staff says you may spend a move action to cast the spell linked to the two glyphs in this box. So you can embed a spell in there. And as you understand the actions, you can't take two spell actions, but with this you could, because you could take a spell action, then you can use the staff to spend a move action as a spell action. So anyway, you'll see how that works. And there's a chart that says, how you can take your turns. Like you see, you can do move, room action, meaning using the ability of the room or collecting a glyph from the room. Move, magic. That means you move twice and then cast a magic spell. Move, room. That means you move and you take 2 room actions, and move, room, magic. But you can see you can't do 2 magic. So with the staff you can. And then we have the robe. Now, when we put a threat token in, let's say it's fire, then we become immune to that threat. Now, all of the shared, the wand, the staff, and the robe are all the same for all the characters. But I'm going to bring the other characters out just to show you. This is Flitter. It says Flitter is a silver-tongued purveyor of black market magical weaponry. Her special ability is it costs you 1 fewer glyph to use a room action to acquire magic items. Now, that's what I talked about. These are the magic items, the wand, the staff, and the robe. You may carry an additional item of a type of your choice. So in other words, I could have 2 glyphs in the robes, and she could carry 2 robes and be immune, 2 threats, and she could be immune to fire and darkness, for example. Same with the staff and the wand. That's our character Flitter. And then we have what I think is one of the cooler characters. You notice all the artwork is great and the characters are really neat to look at. Bramble, kind-hearted treant, protector of the Academy's gardens. Special ability, you may cancel a botch cast in your room by paying a number of glyphs equal to the spell's level. So if it's level 1 spell, you pay 1 glyph. Again, all the other items, all the other things in the abilities are the same, just that one special ability. And then again, it does have on the back of the characters, there's a gameplay summary, so you can use one of those. And it talks about obstacles and enduring effects and mana loss and da-da-da. It's pretty it's a pretty intuitive game once you get used to it. But like I said, there's a lot. And I did print out a cheat sheet for myself with the turn actions. So again, the first thing you see there is you have to play your disaster card. We're always going to have a disaster card on each of our characters. We're going to know what it is so we can kind of prepare for it as we head into the next turn. But we're going to draw, and after we play the disaster card we already have, we draw a new one. And we get to look at it. Then we get to take 3 actions, and I kind of explain the action rounds to you with the move. You get a move, a room, and a magic action, or you can split that up in some different ways. So you pass all that. You can also pass any time. And then we have to endure threats, which means if we're in a room with a threat, we have to sort it out, and you'll see how that works. There's some summaries around that are pretty interesting. I do think you'll find this to be a very entertaining and interesting game. And once again, I'm just going to talk about the scenario. we have this scenario that we're playing right here. It's called Golem Construction for Beginners, and it shows us how to set everything up. There's also an easy mode and a hard mode. I'm playing on neither. I'm just playing on the normal mode. And you can see the win condition there. It says the 4 rooms in the corners of the academy each contain a guardian. That's our goal. So we're going to try and make that happen. We're going to try and make it happen without me losing, because I've lost the last 2 games that I've played on my channel. One of them was Mansions of Madness 2nd Edition, and the one before that was a terrible Zombicide Black Plague session where I included everything in the kitchen sink, which turned out to be a mistake. So we're not playing hard or easy. We're just playing the normal mode, and we're going to get going right now. So we're going to start taking our turns. Now, I do have to get the disaster deck out, and we're going to put one on each of our character. We'll start with Bramble Thorn. He will go first, and we'll see what happens there. Alright guys, so the first thing we have to do, and I'll explain this a little bit further, is we have to get each character is going to have a disaster card, and I haven't passed them out yet because I wanted to show you how this works. There's a disaster deck and a progression deck that has some progressingly tougher things in it. This is the basic deck for the disasters we start with, and then once we run out of these, we reshuffle them with 2 from the progression deck, and the progression deck goes from a difficulty of 0 up to a difficulty of 4. And so we're going to start by giving each one of them the characters. I just passed out 3. One of these disaster cards. Now at the beginning, a lot of things are not going to happen. It's going to be very, very basic. So the first thing that happens in a turn is we look at the disaster card, and it says activate threats. Activate all threats in the laboratory, mana crystal, and other dimension. There aren't any threats currently, so that just gets discarded. This gives us kind of an easy, slower start. So now we get to go with Bramble, and Bramble is in the crystal chamber, so let's go to the board and take Bramble Thorn's actions. Okay, so we get to do a couple of things. Now, when you take an action, you get 3 actions. You get a move action, a magic action, and a room action. You can take them in any order, but you can also sacrifice some actions. So, for example, you can take 3 actions, and you say you may freely convert a magic action into a room action, and a room action into a move action. So we're still only so we could get some extra moves, but we don't need them, because what I'm going to do with Bramble Thorn, and this is Bramble Thorn's miniature right here, is we're going to move into the Horde right here, and it says pay 5 glyphs to acquire. I'm sorry, I'm reading it sideways. Acquire the staff. Well, we can't do that yet, but what we can do is for our next action is take a room action to pick up one of these runes, and we're going to take that. We're going to put it into Bramble Thorn's shared space. He can still use it, but that way if another player has an opportunity, they can use it as well. And we're probably going to split these guys up and send them in different directions. Really, and you can always sacrifice an action. So that's basically what we're going to do, because we can only convert, well, we can convert the magic action into a room action. So we could do that again. I think we will. And we'll draw a second, we'll take a second room action, and if I can find one, which I just did, we'll draw a second one of these tokens so we can actually cast a spell next turn, see what we get. So that is going to be Bramble Thorn's turn, and that is the entirety of the turn. So he moved into here, he used his room action to pick one of these up, and then converted his magic action to a room action to pick up another one. And that's his turn. And how do I know I can do that? Because it says it on this sheet right here. You may freely convert a magic action into a room action, and room actions into move actions. So you could move, and you could move, room, which is what we did. So now we're going to go on to Flitter's turn. First we're going to deal with Flitter's disaster card, which is probably not going to do much. And again, it's an activated threats, but we don't have any actual threats on the board, so this is giving us a nice easy start. Now we're going to go to Bramble Thorn's turn. Or I'm sorry, not Bramble Thorn, Flitter's turn rather. So our level 2 Glyph is over here, so we're going to take a double move. We're going to go, yeah, we can go 1 and then 2 for a double move, and then I think we'll take our room action and pick up one of these. That's actually a level 4 Glyph, which is okay, but we're just going to put that on our sheet. So she picked one of those up, might as well since she's there, and that's going to be the end of her turn. So you can see these turns initially go very quickly. Now ultimately we're going to want to get these spells cast so we can start to see what they are. But next we're going to go to Nivetta and see what her disaster is. You know what I'm not doing is I need to be adding disasters after we play the disaster. We're supposed to get a new one. So Bramble Thorns is Wild Magic. Randomize the unbound spells in the highest level set of spells that has a spell cast. Has had a spell cast. Well, it's none right now, so it might be none by the time it gets to Bramble Thorn as well. And then Flitter's going to be an activates threat, so nothing's really going to happen there either. And then Nivetta's is an activate threats where there's no threats on the board yet. So we're having a pretty safe turn. So we're going to go to Nivetta's turn now. I apologize for the glare. I've tried to move my my lighting, my soft lighting around. It's not working out too well. But here is Nivetta, and you can see she's the bear. And we're going to move her straight down. She's going to go 1, 2. Huh. Doesn't have any glyphs to pay for this action in the workshop. Maybe, but see what I want to do is get her down to here. And can we do 3 moves? We can do 3 moves. So she's going to take all her actions, she's going to burn all her actions, do 3 moves, and get down to the enchanted well so that she can pick up that glyph down there. That's going to start giving us a good run on the glyphs. So here's her disaster card. It's another activation card. So next turn, the only one we have to worry about is the wild magic card. But since Bramblethorn's going first and there's no cast spells, it's really not going to have any effect. So let's go back to Bramblethorn now and take his turn. Okay, so what we're going to do with Bramblethorn is we're going to play this disaster, this wild magic card. We don't have to do that. It says randomize the unbound spells in the highest level set of spells that has had a spell cast. That's none of them. So at this point we haven't cast any spells, so that goes away. And we're going to draw his next one. An Imp Invasion. Well, this is actually going to something that's going to happen next turn. We're going to actually populate an Imp Portal on Bramblethorn's next turn. That's the first thing that's going to happen. Now there was 2 level 1 threats mixed into the deck based on the scenario, and so that's the first one of those that's come out so far. Okay, now let's take Bramblethorn's turn. I know exactly what we're going to do with Bramblethorn. Okay, so I have 2 things we could do. We could take Bramblethorn and move Bramblethorn down to the library where Bramblethorn can then next turn bind a spell with a room action. But if we move 2, we're going to give up our room actions and take a magic action to cast a spell. But I think actually what we're going to do is I'm going to take another glyph of that type, and so that way he'll have 3 because he's going to keep the one in his shared pool for another character while at the same time now taking a second action to cast a spell. Now remember, we don't know what spells are going to do exactly. So for our next action, we're going to take these 2 glyphs and cast a spell. You notice that the glyph here and the glyph here match. So we're going to do the first spell in these rows. We're going to do this spell right here, and hopefully it's something good. So we're going to burn the 2 glyphs that were required, and we're going to cast this spell. Now this is part of the way we discover and use what spells are. This is a pulse spell. All imps, trolls, and demons portals in your room or an adjacent room spawn their respective creatures. This is a botch. This is a bad thing. So we do know that pulse is that first spell there. So if we bind it, we'll always know what it is. Now to do that, we have to go to the library. Now Bramblethorn does still have an action that's going to move. It's a move action, so I think we're going to actually move. What Bramblethorn's going to do is start heading toward the library and move here. So if we can get down to the library, we can take the room action and bind that pulse spell and get rid of it and make it so it's always up and we know it's there. We don't ever have to mess with it again if we don't want to. Okay, that is going to be the end of Bramblethorn's turn. Now we're going on to Flitter. Now I'm not going to go to Flitter's character. Flitter has this card, so it's just going to go away. We're going to discard that and we're going to draw the next one. Another wild magic card for Flitter. Now this will have an effect. The good news is that Bramblethorn's going to go first and bind the that pulse spell before it gets randomized. So that's a good thing. And then we're going to take Flitter's turn. Now Flitter had done some movement, and for this turn Flitter's going to move one more. Going to take a room action in the planar rift to gain one of these glyphs. And then let's see, we could do a move room, right? Yes, so she's going to then take a, well, we're not going to be able to bind 2 spells next turn, I don't think. So I don't think it's going to help us as much to do that. I was thinking if she casts a spell, I think we're going to wait till this wild magic passes to do that. Because if we can't bind 2 spells next turn, we're going to have one randomized again. We won't know where it is. So I think while she's there, she'll take a second room action. Now we can't get this glyph because this guardian is there. We're going to have to figure that out. I don't know how we do that yet. We'll see. There's going to be some way that we can move guardians around, I suppose. But she's going to take a second glyph, and she's going to share, put it in her shared space on her character sheet, so again, other characters can take advantage of that. So she's got 2 of those glyphs right now, and that's going to end her turn. Now we're going on to Nevada. Now Nevada has discard, so it's not, we're just going to discard that. It's not going to do anything yet. And then water. So on her next turn, now we're going to start having things happen. Next turn we're going to have a water portal come up, and that's not going to be what we want. But we're down on the Enchanted Well here with Nevada, and so for her first action, she's going to take a room action, which will give her one of these glyphs. And I think, again, I think I'm going to wait to cast spells. So I think what she'll do is take a second room action and pick up a second glyph. We're doing a lot of glyph gathering right now while we're not facing a lot of threats, so that we can get some spells cast and up. And that's going to basically be, well, she's got to move. Does she want to move? You know, in the flux room, what can we do there? I don't know. I don't think that's going to be helpful. She could move up to the workshop, pay 3 glyphs. What's her ability? Her special ability is starting. No, she can avoid the effects of some of the disasters we're going to face, or threats rather. So I think, I don't know. Let's skip her move phase and leave her there, so we can collect a couple more of those runes. We need them anyway, and then she'll move next turn. She doesn't really have any place to go. She could head toward, well, she could head toward the library and help lock down some spells. She's got 2 of the level 3 glyphs. We could get that spell and figure it out. It's going to randomize, but that's okay. Let's do that. So Nivetta's going to move there, heading toward the library as well to work with Bramblethorn to lock down and put up some spells. Okay, that is going to be the end of Nivetta's turn. So we're going to wrap back around. I'm going to do one more turn, I think, because now some interesting things are going to happen. And we're going to take Bramblethorn's turn. Here's where things start to get interesting, because we're not going to activate Imps because there's none on the board, but we're going to skip to this step. If there are fewer than 3 threatening Imp portals, place an Imp portal in a random room, and that's what we're going to do. So we're going to take the Imp portal, which is this right here, and we're going to get the location deck out. Now there are some cards that have already been discarded because of where we put the runes, and those will get shuffled back in after we go through this deck. But the cursed room is going to get an Imp portal, go figure. So that is going to be here, and we are going to put an Imp in that room. Now this is bad, because when an Imp, because now the second part to that card is activate the Imp. Okay, so now we're going to take a look at the book. I'm going to show you what happens when you activate something like the Imps. And it says right here, here's the threat rules. If in a room with a wizard who has glyphs, the wizard loses a glyph of their choice, which is terrible because that was the only glyph. Now, oh man, means she's not going to be able to, well, still bind the spell, but she's going to lose the glyph. So, and if there was a threat there of either, it says fire or water, we can remove it, but there isn't. So the Imp simply took Bramblethorn's glyph and ran off with it, little thief. And that's going to be the activation for that. And that's going to then discard this card. And we're going to draw another one, which is this one, so we don't have to, we're going to activate, let me see, we're going to activate the cursed room though, aren't we? No, that's not the cursed room. That is the Horde in the Awakened room. So again, we're in good shape there. Now we're going to take Bramblethorn's turn. Bramblethorn is going to continue down here, and we're going to use the room. So we're going to take a move action, a room action, which is bind a spell. You don't have to have the glyphs to bind a spell. You just have to be able to pick the spell out and say this is what it is. If you fail to, if you pick the wrong spell, it's going to randomize this set of spells right here, the first level spells, and then the second level spells will do the same, third and fourth. But we know that this is Pulse. So we're going to call this Pulse, and we're going to bind it, and it's going to pop up. And now we don't have to worry about that one anymore. Well, at least not knowing what it is. And if we do randomize, that one will not be randomized. So we still have A magic action we can convert into a move action. I think what we'll do is head Bramble Thorn back up. I'm not worried about the Imp, and we'll head back up to be able to collect more of those glyphs up there. Okay, now we're going to Flitter. Now, Flitter has the Wild Magic spell. And we do know, or the Wild Magic Disaster, we do know that we're going to do what it says. Now, it says randomize the unbound spells in the highest level set of spells that has had a spell cast. Well, we've only done one, so here's what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know what these are anyway, but we're going to take all these level 1s here, and we're just going to move them around, randomize them a bit, because that's what... Now, if we had cast some of these spells but had not bound them yet, we would lose their position and have to refigure out where they're at. This part of the game is kind of a memory game. So that's what happened with the Wild Magic Disaster. So we're going to discard that one and draw another. We're getting down to the bottom, so we're going to end up shuffling in 2 cards. Activate a threat. Activate all threats in the Holy Room. Well, we're not going to have to worry about that, but that goes on a card, and then we get to take her turn. Okay, so now we are going to be able to cast a spell with her. She's got 2 of these symbols, 2 level 3s, or 2 level 3 glyphs, or level 2 glyphs rather. So we're going to get to cast the spell in the level 2 glyph space. Let's see what that is. Okay, so she is going to give up these 2 glyphs to cast this spell. As you see, it lines up with those, and we'll see what it is. Randomly casting a spell. It's Scribe. Perform the library bind spell action. So you can cast a spell to do that. But of course, to cast the spell, you do need the glyphs. So we know that that is in this slot right here. We're going to bind it soon, but for her next action, she's going to take a room action, 2 room actions, instead of moving to get 2 more said glyphs. So she took, wait, I don't know if I can do that. Hold on. You can do a, no, I can't do that. I can only do 1 room. I can do move magic or move room, but not, so I did room. I did the room ability. I cannot do a second room ability. I'm not going to cast a spell. No, I didn't. I cast a spell, and then I'm going to convert a room action. Convert magic action to room action to a move action. So anyway, I'm only going to be able to get 1 of these. So she recovered 1 of those glyphs, which she'll put in her shared space, just to make sure that somebody else has access to it. And then we're going to have to make, we don't have to, but we can make a move. Let me think about that. So, you know, I don't think I'm going to move her. I think I'm going to leave her there to collect a couple more of those glyphs next turn. They're useful because they combine with a lot of other spells at that level, lower level, and that'll make it good for her. And I got to figure out how we move these golems, these guardians around. I'm sure I think there's a 4th level spell that allows us to do that. Maybe a 3rd level spell, which would be very important because we need to move them out of the corner rooms now that I realize that the glyphs ended up there, so we can get to those glyphs. Otherwise, we won't be able to. But anyway, that's going to end Flitter's turn. We're going to move on to Nevada, who has something really big happening. Okay, so here's Nevada. She is 1 room away from the library. Now, she is going to move from the library, but first we have to take care of her disaster. It says activate water portals. We don't have any, so we're going to, if there are no threatening water portals, we're going to place a water portal in a random room. So let's do that. This is what a water portal looks like. Let's go find a room we're going to place it in. When we activate these, they create more water, but let's see what location it's going to be in the workshop. So there's a water portal in the workshop, which is right here where she is currently at. Go figure. Now let's take a look at what a water portal will do against us, rather, because it's going to do something that we're not going to like. So let's see. Water. That's just water, but I'm looking for the portals. The portals are a little different than the. I think they create 2 water. I'm not sure. I have to look. Okay, now that's water tokens. You can look at portals. Here we go. Portals. No, it's just if they activate. Special when a portal comes into play, it is designated as being a particular type portal, so it is. Use a portal token with an image. We got that. The appropriate threat represents the portal. Spells does that. Okay, so nothing happens until it activates. And it's placed the threat of the indicated type into the room. So it's a water portal, so water threats will come into the room. But that's it for the doesn't say to activate after that, so it's just going to do that because it says activate first, and that's not going to happen. So we just drew the last of the threat activations for Nevada. So what that means is we are going to then take, this is the progression deck, we're going to take the first two. Now I know these are level 0s, so they're not going to be real tough. I don't know what they are, but they're level 0s. And we're going to then take the regular deck and we're going to shuffle them and put these back in. And that's how this is going to play out. Which means now we have some more threats that could activate and pop into the game. You can see it's going to get progressively more difficult for us as we go, which is really cool because it gives us some time to build up some spells. We already got that pulse spell done, and Nevada is going to do some spell casting and room actions. So the first thing that Nevada is going to do, we already bound the portal spell, and yeah, I'm trying to remember. We did look at one. I'm trying to remember what it is now. Yeah, let me. So okay. I think I got it. Okay, I think I got it. We're gonna move here. Got to pay close attention. I got to remember these things. So first action, she's going to move. For second action, she's going to cast a spell. Yeah. So we're going to cast the spell that requires these two glyphs. So she's going to burn those two glyphs. That's going to line up right here. So it's going to be this spell. It is Chill. If you're in a room that contains no ice or water, place a single ice token in your room. Okay. So then we're going to flip that over. So you know that's Chill. We got to get an ice token, which looks like this, and we're going to place it in the library. Now, one ice token by itself, I don't think does anything. It requires two. But let me just check. I think if there's two, you freeze, and that's not good. So let's look at the ice. If it activates, when it activates, freezes nearby water. If two ice tokens are in adjoining rooms, then they are considered to be part of the same block of ice. If one is activated, then they are all activated. When ice is activated, every water token in rooms adjoining the active becomes ice. If we have to do a wizard ending its turn in the room with two ice tokens is killed. So we only have one in there right now, and that's an important room for us. Well, it won't be in a minute because we're going to take her next action. So she casts a spell, then we're going to bind a spell. So if you can take in the room action, she's binding the spell, and it's going to be the Scribe Spell. So we know we now have that. We can bind from anywhere as long as we have the glyphs to cast the spell. That's the important part. So, yeah, and that's going to require, yeah. So the next thing she can do, I don't think. So we moved. We did a room action. Can we convert a magic action into a room action? We can. So we still have our magic action. So she's going to bind again because we want to get. We're going to call this what it is. It's that it's the Chill spell that we had. So we're going to bind this. You can see this. This has the ability. It does have a good effect if you're in a place with fire. So to remove all fire tokens from your room before placing the ice tokens. That could help us. We might use that. Even though it's a botched spell, we might use it. Now we got 3 spells showing, and one that we can actually get some good use out of. And that is basically going to end Nevada's turn. So let's go back to the board and talk about what happened. So again, ideally, what we're trying to do is get golems into the guardians rather, into the 4 corners of the building in the academy to protect it from the demons that are trying to get in. We have 2 in those corners now, but we need to move them out temporarily to get to the glyphs because you cannot pick up a glyph in a room with a guardian. If imps enter a room with a guardian, they die. So there's a lot of things going on there. And we can go through it. We can stand in the same room with the guardian. They're not going to attack us or anything. They don't activate. They're not threats. But we can't pick up the glyph. It just isn't possible. So now, again, what I say, if we die, if one of us dies, we're going to lose one of these tokens. We also have some other things we can do there. We can rearrange. We can spend them to rearrange rooms and that, but we don't need to do that. We just need to keep collecting and casting until we have the right combinations of spells to start dealing with our threats and getting rid of not only getting rid of the enemies, but also putting us in place to be able to move the guardians around. So that's our mission. That's our purpose, and we're going to try and get to it. I think so far. Tell me if I made any mistakes. I don't believe I did. Actually, I'm trying to map this out pretty carefully. There's a lot going on in the game, like the interactions between ice and water. That's all going to come into play later, and that's when it's going to get complicated. Right now, it's still fairly simple. We're just we're running through the disaster deck to gain to figure out what happens to us and what kind of threats are coming on. There haven't been many yet because the disaster deck stacks light to begin with and gets worse as it goes. And the Academy, the forces arrayed against the Academy are starting to build up, and the demons were able to get an imp portal into the cursed room. Bad thing for us. So we'll see how it goes. I'm really excited about this. I like this. This game has got some really cool concepts with the spell casting and the grimoire and how the rooms lay out. And again, I didn't go over much in the way of setup because it's very, there's a lot to the setup, but it's cool. Anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for subscribing. I really appreciate it. Can't wait to see how this plays out. Let me know what you think. I hope this is a game you like. Wizards Academy by 3D, was it 3D Total Games, I think it is? Yeah. And it's rather enjoyable. So, talk to you soon, everybody. Bye.